Welcome, ladies and germs, to another spectacular edition, a long-awaited edition of the Bloody Thumbs podcast episode. Yes. What?
I was just about to say, you know, man, I'm so glad to be back. This is episode
125.
125. Damn. We have been in business for a good long time, and we still don't have public stock options. But I tell you what.
What?
We will eventually.
I
was scrambling to think of something to say at that last moment, but you know, it's like, might as well go with the safest thing I could possibly say.
No, that worked. That would have been up there with the top, one-liners for CSI Miami.
I'm not worthy of a one-liner from for CSI Miami's opener right there, but I maybe for Adult Swim's NTSD SV SUV or whatever they call it.
Yeah, maybe. Who knows? I'm optimistic. So any shot at the public broadcasting is fine by me.
Yes. Public broadcasting is wonderful. Although they could use a lot more Tim and Eric and Harvey Birdman and Venture Brothers and what have you.
Frisky Dingo, I forget about that.
And Frisky Dingo, Adam Reed's first kind of job on that. You know, his actual first job was like doing like a puppet show for Cartoon Network before they made Adult Swim, and he was mostly doing it when he was drunk. So and like there was one time where he was just on set and he got so drunk that they accidentally started a fire and almost burned down the entire building.
Lesson learned, kids. Do that and you'll get your own animated cartoon show.
Do that and you'll be considered one of the best animating geniuses on TV. So just get drunk as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I haven't really kept up with Archer, unfortunately. I've only seen the first season, but no, prior to that, I really enjoyed his previous work on Adult Swim, all the C Lab and Frisky Dingo.
I do like the fact that even though their concept of advertising their shows and scheduling makes about as much sense as as someone telling you they're having a cardiac arrest while they're in the midst of having one. Adult Swim at the very least made sure like any show that had like a budget of at least $10 got made. Like for a couple of episodes, like there's stuff that they like advertised for like 2 minutes on their regular show, and then they would go into just like the craziest thing, like Xander, Renegade Angel, and then they had one of my favorite shows that was never continued was Fat Guy Stuck in the Internet, and that never got a sequel. And it's just like they're willing to take a risk on anything, and that's why I enjoy Adult Swim, just because it's not just like it's this comedy show where it's a bunch of guys in a bar who get into trouble and they have relationship problems. Like, no, over here it's like, it's an old superhero who becomes a lawyer because he has nothing else to do. And then it's like, there's this old cartoon that we have, and we're just redubbing the voices and then making them seem like complete idiots.
Yeah, that whole time slot of Adult Swim is really an interesting time for TVs. Back when it first launched with all those original programming and things like that, and I haven't really kept up with it as much. It's sort of, I wouldn't say dropped off, but maybe that's a good word to say, but hasn't had as much popularity as it once did before. But it's still, for whatever they put on there, I'm sure it's fine. I think the last couple things I've seen on there was the John C. Reilly the show that Dr. Steve Brule.
Yeah, Brule Rules.
Brule Rules, that's awesome.
Yeah, and then I've noticed that like I've been interested in Children's Hospital that they picked up.
Yeah, I've seen a couple of that.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I've seen a couple episodes of that. That's pretty good too.
I just like the fact that they have an entire episode of which is just is a parody of Do the Right Thing, and at the very end where the cops are going crazy and everyone's just like losing their mind because of the heat, one of the physicians just grabs the Henry Winkler's character and just yells, "Shoot Henry Winkler! Shoot him!" And oh, that is brilliant, and it's I do like that show just because it's I think it's particularly funny, but it's also I like the fact that they're also getting money behind their shows now. They've proven themselves, and now they got shows like Eagle Heart and NTSD, which is the CSI Miami Law and Order sort of satirical show, and they're employing a lot of comedians that I particularly like, and especially these big ensemble pieces that they get to kind of showcase their talents. But also, they've got good writing, and they got really good. They have really good. They have really good production value behind it. Although there's this one episode of NTSD, which is I think where it's like they're dealing with like a killer dolphin, so they go to visit like a Hannibal Lecter like dolphin inside of a prison, and it's voiced by Tim Curry, and it is one of the weirdest episodes I've ever seen. And I was not even drunk at that time. I said to myself, I am not in the right state of mind to be watching this. If I was like shotgunning beers down or indulging in some other vices, maybe sniffing glue or like having smoking like rabbit hair or something like that, then I would probably be able to get into the right mindset. But for that, I was just like, this is weird, but it's awesome at the same time. I don't think I can appreciate it in the right light.
That sounds awesome. One of the other things I appreciate with most of the Adult Swim shows is that they aren't usually very long. They're like good 15 minutes tops, even then. Depending on the show, really, they always leave you wanting more. And I think they always have a good cutting off point with their shows. They never drag on something for too long. That's why they work in those kind of small bits, those 15-minute bits.
Mm-hmm. And what's great about it is that they're a lot of the big problem with American programming is that anything past past maybe 20 minutes is going to have commercials in it. They're going to be just filled with, like, even in a half-hour show, you got 2 commercial breaks at the very least. And with Adult Swim, what I really like is that they have 15-minute shows, and although sometimes they do have 30-minute shows, that the 15-minute shows are just in and out. They get the jokes out there, and what I do like is that there's this, because of the fact that they're pressured to keep that 50-minute time slot, they got to cut a lot of jokes out and really just edit it down to what really works and what makes the episode really memorable. And that's what I really dug about. I have one of the seasons of Harvey Birdman, and I was just looking through some of the behind the scenes stuff and the commentary, and there's actually a lot more that was going on in the background. It's like, okay, we were gonna have this subplot, but it didn't really pan out. Or originally, like, there was an episode where they had Mark Hamill voice like 5 different voices for like different characters, but they just said they're like, okay, we don't have enough time. We're just gonna have to just have him be this one character for like 2 scenes. And like it's interesting that they, just because they're restricted, and that I think artistic endeavors really do flourish under restrictions, rather than just like you've seen, and we've all seen where artists have been given blank checks to do whatever the heck they want, and they turn out pretty mediocre products, like Zack Snyder with Sucker Punch, or George Lucas with nobody like saying like, listen, George, you shouldn't do these prequels this way. It's just nonsense. It's because like he's made so much money over the years and so much and so much critical praise, from their previous endeavors, that nobody ever stops to say like, okay, should we do this? I don't know. He should know. He's probably going to know what he's doing just because he's that guy.
Well, Tarantino seems to be the one that does it pretty well. He gets to do a lot with what he wants, and whether you like it or don't, you can at least appreciate the work that gets put into those films.
Yeah, it's obvious that there's quality work going into his films, but sometimes there are things that, and same thing like with Django Unchained, I liked the film more than I didn't, but there were things about it that I really wish somebody was over his shoulder to saying like, oh, I don't think we should do that. Like that wouldn't really work too well, or just somebody to at least come in for the third act of it, just going like, okay, listen, we need to do something about this, just because it's kind of just winding down and there's nothing really else to do. But Tarantino does seem to be like one of those individuals just kind of skip past that mark. Actually, Peter Jackson. As much as I like Peter Jackson, I think The Lovely Bones and not Heavenly Creatures. That was one before. The Lovely Bones and King Kong a bit, where it's like, okay, you really should have gotten somebody else to tell you, like, okay, this should, he made the Lord of the Rings trilogy. No one else is going to like, I don't think he knows what he's doing. But you do need that producer or someone in the background just kind of rein you back in, no matter what type of person you are for an artistic endeavor. When you just have a lot of people looking forward to your work, you should have somebody that just tap you on the shoulder and go, okay, maybe we should just reconsider this.
Yeah, definitely. There's definitely some prime examples of that. I got to say that Django was pretty good. I enjoyed the hell out of it. Could have used some editing, most definitely. It's probably already been said, but there are like two instances where I thought the movie was gonna end, and it didn't. But
Yeah.
but I didn't mind it. And it was like didn't realize how long it was. It didn't feel like it was that fit long of a film. That's why I was so immersed into it. I thought it was really really well shot, and all the locales that was in that film was pretty damn good. Pretty damn good.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a colorful film too,
Oh yeah.
and good acting all around. I loved everybody's characters, and dialogue is very Tarantino-esque. Without I thought it was funny. Just like, okay, this is taking place during the late 17th century. Like I wonder like if he's going to be able to crowbar any pop culture references in there, but it's like, no, he's pretty reserved for this time around. It's like, and also a lot of pop culture wasn't made like when the time period of this film was taking place. But it's a film that I really thought it was a very good effort, but there was just a couple of instances where I thought they could have deviated a little bit and made it just like his greatest thing ever that he's worked on. And I'd say I'm a big fan of everybody involved: Christoph Waltz, Leonardo DiCaprio. I wish Kerry Washington had more stuff to do, because she's kind of just there to scream and cry when appropriate and just act as the end goal, like the boon, the boon or the MacGuffin of the piece.
Right. Yeah, she was one of the ones that was kind of underwritten in that one. And usually you come to expect with Tarantino that they have pretty good. I mean, with most of his films have pretty good, decent female characters in there. So that probably would have been another extra 15 minutes of characterization involved, but that could have been some of that time could have been used for more of her characterization, especially cutting out those instances where it wasn't needed, I guess. So
Yeah.
that's kind of the only downside of it, but it's still entertaining movie to watch.
No, it was. It was. It just and I was thinking about what you said about how the editing seemed very not fast, but it made the time go by very quickly and didn't feel long. Whereas films like Inglourious Bastards really dragged out scenes in a good way, where it felt like, okay, it's tense and these dialogue scenes are just filled with something like layers of sentences that really add to the atmosphere. But that may have to do with the fact that Sally Menke, who is the editor for Tarantino's other films, was actually died back in 2010. So it's Fred Raskin, I think his name is, who took over the job of being the editor, and it doesn't seem to have that Tarantino lingering on one shot sort of setup that he usually has in like Pulp Fiction or Reservoir Dogs. In fact, this seems more along the editing style. Like, this is the most different from the editing styles that I've seen in Tarantino films. The only one that really comes close is probably True Romance, and that wasn't even really that was written by Tarantino, but that wasn't directed or had any of his sort of artistic elements that he would probably have had flourish in there.
Tony Scott joint right there.
Yeah, yeah. Tony Scott, which was I would say probably Tony Scott's best film. That I love the hell out of True Romance because it has. I love the acting. The dialogue's great. I really do think it's the best thing Tarantino ever even worked on, and it's fantastic. Gary Oldman is a Rastafarian pimp. If that doesn't make you interested already, then you're just dead inside and don't want to see anything good. And it just has just so many very strange Tarantino elements to it that are just makes for such a fascinating story. Like the main protagonist, played by Christian Slater, who is this kind of 20-something bum who works at a comic book store, and then he's talked into these homicidal rages by this apparition of Elvis Presley, played by Val Kilmer, who's never seen on screen completely. Like you see his profile or you see his like shoulder, but you never see his face. It's like this is so weird that it has to be a modern fairy tale. It is not. It could not possibly be a modern crime drama, just because it's just so very strange.
Yeah, definitely for Gary Oldman, that was one of his kind of out there and just interesting characters he's played. That in like The Fifth Element.
The Fifth Element, or even Leon. Where like he's a very versatile actor, and I can't wait to see the expression of like the 14-year-old kid who's just going out there like saying like, oh, Dark Knight was that was a good film, and I really enjoyed Gary Oldman as Commissioner Gordon. I wonder what other films he's in. Oh, he plays psychopaths. Okay, that's interesting.
And Leon the Professional. That's a good, perfect example there.
Yeah, just the fact that like he loves Beethoven's opening, but after the openings he just can't stand them anymore just because like they're so boring. He's one of those actors who can meld into any role. And you know what? Talk about speaking of good acting and good performances.
Yeah.
The next thing I want to talk to you about reminds me of a certain song. Do you know what that is?
Oh, that's a good question.
It's Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder.
Oh crap! I should know this. I don't know how I.
It's all good. It's all good.
I'm drawing a blank because I got the commercials of pizza on the screen. It distracts me. God damn
it. Ebony and ivory. And that is a reference, of course, to the song, which is also a reference to Devil May Cry, which is the name of the guns that Dante has as his main firearms of choice. And I have to say,
what a segue.
Yeah, I tell you what, man. To be honest, Superman couldn't really make that leap. So just from now, I just want to thank you all for just staying with me while I make these connections that out of thin air and bullshit. But I absolutely love this new Devil May Cry. I haven't played the first one or the second one. I played the third one. I enjoyed it, but I really was not a huge fan of it. I really couldn't see what everybody was so enthralled with. I didn't really like the presentation. The overall style was too dark, and I don't even mean like mature, violent dark. I mean just like everything was like 10 shades darker in color than it really should have been. And then I didn't like the character of Dante. I think he was just kind of this egotistical prick who just was not very interesting. It was this kind of staple mark of androgynous anime characters who are just like, oh, I'm just going to be a kick-ass fighter guy who could shooting down one-liners. And then there's not really a lot of character development to that. And with this one, Dante's still a prick. He's kind of a jackass, and but the different thing that's really different is that they actually explore why he's a jackass, and when you start learning about like his upbringing and the fact that he's kind of lived in a world that he's always been terrified of and that's been trying to kill him, so he's had to find some sort of outlet, and for that like his demeanor is kind of appropriate. And I love the presentation in this game. This game is absolutely wonderful. In the real world, everything looks very nice, and it could be like even satisfy as its own presentation style of if it was another game, but when it just breaks down and when the game goes into kind of the limbo realm, that's when it gets fucking awesome. Where you have these clashing color schemes, like instead of like the typical sort of aesthetically pleasing blue and orange sort of meshed together, it's like these beautiful greens and reds and just like these golds, but they don't really mesh together, and all the character types look kind of similar to Bayonetta, where they have they're designed kind of like this crumbling Roman architecture meets Gothic sort of look, and it's really really awesome to see it in motion. And I love this game. This game really took me by surprise. And there's great performances here too, and I was really afraid that they, from trailers and the little gameplay snippets we've got, that this Dante would be just nothing but in your face, like, oh yeah, fuck you, fuck the system, yeah. But he's more just like, that's really just like a uncommon occurrence. It's pretty rare, and the only time where it really comes to light is when he's actually fighting a really foul-mouthed boss type. And it's such a and still it's a little bit too much swearing for me, but hey, I'm willing to deal with that. I watch Tarantino films, of course. I'm gonna be fine with that by now. And then
You would think, yeah.
it's good combat system. It's not as deep as Devil May Cry 3, which is where it's Devil May Cry 3, you had so much options, you had so many varieties of styles to do, but the thing is that for me, it was overwhelming, where I wouldn't use half of the combos and all the fanciful things that I would, be able to pull off, just because it made no sense to, try to explore and, experiment with all those when I had kind of this a small group of combos that I knew and worked well with. And then, but this time around for DMC, you have, you've got your main weapons of the Rebellion sword, you got grapple attack, gunplay, but then when you also press down the different triggers, left trigger or right trigger, you get demon or angel mode, which gives you different weapons. But the fact of the matter is that they're used for different styles, specifically for enemy juggling or for area attacks, and you use them all. There's never and because of that, they have to include enemies that are just only like, oh, you can only defeat this enemy with demon weapons or angel weapons, which is kind of annoying when you want to switch on over to kind of your favorite combo style. But that's a small gripe, and it's just so much fun to experiment and go into that. It's you that it continually pushes forward for, oh, I wonder if I can do this or chain this together, rather than saying having the games like, oh, why don't you try this thing? It's like, I really don't want to. But it's not as, the story is not enslaved level of good or character development, but I do like the characters in this game, and I love the design of this game. The gameplay is awesome. The visual style is incredible. The audio is the soundtrack is great. It's done by Comic Christ and Noivia, I think I want to call them, but it's kind of heavy metal techno sort of combination, and it works really really well with this kind of grungier, darker atmosphere. And I gotta say, I'm really really happy for this purchase. It's easily worth $60. It's one of the best hack and slashes in recent memory, probably as good as Bayonetta, if not better.
What?
Yeah, combo breaker right there.
Oh, I can't do this to my girl, Bayonetta. God damn. Yeah, I did see your CH's corner on that. We actually did posted some content this week until we actually got a podcast going for this Sunday. So I did an LP of a game called Ascension, and then I posted your CH's corner on the DMC over on the Bloody Thumbs group page. But that's really good to hear, because I really enjoyed Enslaved, and I think Ninja Theory is a very promising developer. And one of the little things I probably have negative for Enslaved, which is not too many of that, but it's just that the combat was pretty simplistic, and it was more on kind of this visceral and spectacle, and it was very cinematic, Enslaved, and it seems like And from the demo that I played of DMC the other day, it seems that they've already got the combat and gameplay, along with their kind of trademark, their cinematic style included in that DMC game. So
It is, and fortunately, the style of Ninja Theory has always been made beautiful games with awesome motion capture and animations to it, and it really everything comes across as just jaw-droppingly awesome when you look at it.
mm-hmm.
Combat. There's one where you kind of go into the news logo of this Fox News-esque sort of a news station where you can kind of just jump into the digital world through like one of the realms, and it's just so beautiful. And then you combine, and then there's another section where there's this dance club, and you have these kind of ribbons of light that kind of jut out when you slam down on the right button, where it kind of fun, but with a little bit more LSD, pumping music there. It's like, oh wow, this is just incredible. And I really enjoyed Enslaved. I think it's a great experience, but the combat system is not anything to write home about. It is a very basic combat system. It is done just to look very, very cool and feel good in the moment, but it's not one of those things like, oh, I wonder if I could tinker with this and do this thing. This feels like, okay, this is a combat system that is a master in its own class, for the fact that it's not as deep as like Devil May Cry 3, but you use every single option available to you to strengthen your own variety of styles and attacks. It's less expansive, but more focused. And this is easily one of the best hack and slashes up there. This goes up there with Bayonetta and God of War and God Hand and just Vanquish. And it just, well, not like Vanquish, because that's kind of a different type of game, but it is maybe I don't know if I would consider Mad World up there, but it's definitely the best that I played.
Yeah, Vanquish is like a third person shooter with all those the jetpacks on your knees, or your shoes, or whatever. Those are,
Slide around, and then you have it. I just like the fact that it is. I think that's so actually same with Devil May Cry, where Vanquish was I think like the Japanese interpretation of what like Americans think is cool. There's just something weird that's not lost in translation, but rather changed in translation, where you have like, okay, you have like the cigar chomping kind of sergeant in Vanquish, where he's just we're voiced by Steve Blum, of course. Who else are you gonna get? And then, but the thing is that like he does nothing but be the cigar chomping badass, and then everybody's smoking. Like apparently, Japanese people think that Americans are smoking 24 hours a day. Like in our sleep, we got like 3 cigarettes hanging out of our mouth. It's like, and same with Devil May Cry, where it seems like, okay, like it was the 90s, like kind of grunge, screw the system, looking cool while firing guns, but like that just seems like to be the thing that they're only focusing on, and they're like, okay, let's make a world around that. Instead, it's like, let's take these elements, then like put them in the story. It's like, no, let's make that the core focus.
mm-hmm. So yeah, I did play the demo of DMC. Seems very promising. I enjoyed the demo, so I'll have to give that game a look. So as a good recommendation.
High recommendation, and I have to say, I too played the demo, and I wasn't entirely impressed the first time around when I actually played it, but it's definitely one of those occasions where you have to sort of be with it at the very beginning and then go along for the ride. And
Yeah.
it gets better as time goes by, instead of just kind of coming into the middle of it with the with just a demo that like it's just one particular level. And there's actually a lot more platforming than I think there would be. And it's not the enslaved sort of, oh, that looks fun, and oh, this is kind of cool sort of platforming. This is a lot more of like, okay, you need kind of quick timing to kind of figure out where you're going, because a lot of it's like grappling to your location. It's not difficult. It's not like it's not it's not gonna be like Dante just like suddenly puts on a plumber's cap and like just jumps on blocks where it's like, oh, it's me, a Dante. I'm gonna stab you in the throat. But there's definitely a lot more expanded emphasis on platforming than there was in Enslaved, and
Hmm.
there's a lot less puzzles in this version of Devil May Cry than in previous titles. But that's a good thing, just because the puzzles in Devil May Cry usually sucked.
Yeah, some of the platforming and grappling bits reminded me a bit of the Castlevania Lords of Shadow. You were doing a couple of grappling in that game. You were kind of jumping from one end to the other on just kind of these very um, complex and moving platforms. And there are like a couple of parts where you know doing puzzles and platforming in that bit. I don't, Not sure if it's entirely like that, but it's just mainly platforming and then just straight up hack and slash.
It's really fun hack and slash. It's really focused, but the platforming bits are kind of are done, but also like when you like kind of platform over to another environment, you're stopped by a bunch of enemies to kind of to kill and then clear before you go. You can ignore them entirely and then just completely and then go on, but they're going to make it hard for you. Is that shooting at you as you're trying to escape.
Yeah, I like the demo. I never really have I don't have a lot of huge expectations. Most demos um aren't that great, but they give you a good idea of what the game is about and how it plays. And through that demo, I got a good sense of what the game's going to be about, what you're going to be doing, and things like that. And a lot of that whole world shifting and things like that was pretty cool. That cool little bit there. And you're indoors.
Really boss battles too. I was really surprised that the boss battles really do incorporate platforming and action elements really well. It didn't feel over cumbersome. It didn't feel like, oh, this one thing that we showed you, you're gonna have to remember how to do it now, even if you didn't use it before. It's like, no, 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 you actually used it before quite thoroughly, and it was enjoyable when you did. And now,
So let me ask: do you fight God at the end of this game?
I'm sorry.
Do you fight the devil at the end of this game, or God?
Yeah, I won't spoil it, but it would have been awesome if you could fight like just legions of DMC hating fanboys who just like, oh, his hair's not white. Ah, I hate this fucking game. Ah, it's not the same. It's like, yeah, that would have been awesome. But you do fight something similar. And it's pretty epic scope.
Yeah, I was just trying to go into the vein of that Bayonetta ending fight there with the boss.
It's not as awesome as punching God into the sun, but it's pretty damn.
Yeah, it's satisfying for in his own respect. I get it. I get it. So yeah, that's got to be that's something to put on the list there. So
It is.
along with many other things this year, I I mean surprisingly, I didn't even know this was going down until like 2 weeks ago. The have the Hitman trilogy in HD coming out later this month, like next week actually. I'm excited about that. I'd like to see some gameplay exactly. I mean how it looks, but there's nothing of it.
You know, it's the Hitman collection. Is it going to be coming out for the Xbox as well, or is it just one of those like, oh, by the way, we're doing it for PS3 for like 2 weeks before we take it to store shelves?
As far as I'm aware, I think it's for both PS3 and 360. I'm not sure about PC, but it includes the Hitman 2 and then Contracts and then Blood Money, which is already in HD. So I don't know how HD could you get it? Maybe some better looking textures. I don't know. That's what
It,
I'm wondering about.
to your house, like reenact. It's like, see, it's like, oh, do that thing where you like break a vase over his head, and the yeah, and Victor's like, oh, wait, what? No, well, we didn't agree to this. There we are.
I'm actually tempted to get it because it comes with the art book as well. So I might gotta collect some of that, some of the Hitman stuff. It's been a good past couple of months for me with the Hitman stuff coming out, especially with Absolution, and then they got this, the HD trilogy collections. That's nice, very nice.
I haven't gotten to to get to play Hitman Absolution yet, but that does not deter me yet, just because I've heard nothing but great things about it, and I was actually torn between getting this or getting Hitman, which was kind of the only thing that I really wanted to purchase for last year from last year, but I just really wanted to work at just to support the Ninja Theory guys because I love them, and I was very interested in actually playing a hack. I was really actually interested in.
Yeah, I hear you. Now a lot of those that are good come out a lot, so that's one of those occasions to dive right in with some hack and slash. I'm not gonna buy a Wii U. As much as I love Bayonetta, I'm not gonna get a Wii U just to get Bayonetta 2. So
They not end on a cliffhanger. So, and it's still a great game by itself. And please, ladies and germs, if you have not played Bayonetta, please go do so because it is awesome. It is ridiculous, and it is. I want to say it's Japanese sensibilities of action hack slashers that I've seen in a good long time.
it's a lot of fun. I like Bayonetta a lot, even though she is sexualized as much as people like to go on about mainly feminists. I don't know any dudes complaining about the how females are portrayed in games, but even though she is, but she is not like undermined or anything like that. Like you would see in like Samus was in that new Metroid game. That was like a complete slap to the face to that character for the from the past games. But Bayonetta is very uh, independent and ass kicker extraordinaire. So.
Pen and Black don't need no man.
Hmm.
You, and she's never really treated as anything less than being a character in the story. So that on one hand that's good, but then on the other hand, she's her final attack is summoning demons with her hair, leaving her completely naked for cinematic close up of her butt. So it could be debatable.
It's give and take. You gotta take that over the other. At least it had that other aspect in it. At least having her be a decent character.
Um, Platinum Games, I am just they are leading the way in a lot of the kind of action adventure category, and I'm really looking forward. I haven't played Anarchy Reigns, but I heard that's really divisive.
It seems like it's just. It seems like it just go. I don't know. From the videos I've seen, it just kicking ass. Really, I don't know if there's a story at all to this thing, but it just seems more gameplay focused than anything else. But that's fine. I'm always if the gameplay's good, I well don't mind playing. We've kind of reached a point in gaming where there can be much more than just gameplay, and I mean there's definitely different avenues in certainly games that cater to a certain audience that you would get into for either all aspects of that, whether it be gameplay or the story or both. Sometimes it's either one or the other.
Yeah, I've speaking of this, us talking about story and gameplay and how that works together in video games. I've been really disillusioned just because of the fact that Victor Lucas and Scott Jones over at Reviews on the Run, they broke my heart a little bit just because they didn't think that video games have been able to tell good stories. And I not only say bullshit triumphantly, I say it with examples.
I haven't played Bayonetta, that's why.
Exactly. How are you supposed to not understand how video games can tell stories when you don't have our equivalent of Shakespeare, Orson Welles, and Stanley Kubrick in one game called Bayonetta?
Exactly, exactly. I don't know where they get off on their high horse saying this folly.
It is. Yeah, it makes me sad. It's just like, okay, so Red Dead Redemption, BioShock, Shadow of the Colossus, Beyond Good and Evil. Like none of these apparently are good stories. But and it just makes me mad that we hold. I think just because we're the latest, that we are the latest medium right now. We're comparing our storytelling abilities. And because we're the last one to kind of be there, like we are the most critical, just because of the fact that we have this kind of big plethora of other stories from other mediums at our back and just saying and pushing us forward. Like we have movies of Citizen Kane, of Casablanca, and of course books like we have like Catcher in the Rye or For Whom the Bell Tolls, and then for us, it just we are just so worried about whether or not we stack up to these. We are, I think, overly critical of our own of storytelling in our medium.
Well, that kind of goes with a lot of other mediums as well with movies, and they're always kind of criticizing every little thing, and especially I mean, there's nothing wrong with criticizing, but too like like nitpicking little small things, like in bigger movies like Dark Knight Rises, which is it. Look, it's not perfect. It's not a perfect film. I don't think that such a thing as that. It has some flaws, but it's still it's still a good movie regardless. I'd rather sit through that than a lot of the summer popcorn flicks that just cater to all audiences just to make a buck. That don't think of you less by watching their film. It's like I don't get it.
I do, and I think you're right in the fact that movies. I think they also went through that period of, and still are. I mean, I can't recall how many people said like, oh, well, the book was much better because you got a more intricate look at what these things are going. It's that you need to have to work with the medium strengths to your advantage, and games like Spec Ops: The Line. That is a great story in the fact that how it utilizes gameplay and the narrative, how it ties into that, as well as just presenting it to the audience and making it an interactive experience. And same thing with The Walking Dead. It is The Walking Dead video game is much more effective than the TV show or the comic book, just because you are involved in that world.
Yeah, and that's how it becomes more. You become more invested in it because of that that involvement and just having control of what happens and what your character says, and just watching it all unfold. And for games like BioShock, and I mean, let's say like the Penumbra series, which there really is some interesting story beats to it, and it's very dark. That Frictional Games joint right there, that the makers of Amnesia, and then I mean to have those type of games hold your attention for that long, and really get a lot out of it, then an hour and a half film. I don't know.
Uh, it's hard to, well,
But people are gonna be bitching about anything. So, and I mean, like you said, they're both different mediums, and they use the strengths in storytelling to supplement that medium.
just for me, it's
You should, yeah,
should be we should always be pushing forward for advancement where you have like, okay, we've done storytelling, but can we do the story, like for instance, I would love to see storytelling in a game where there are no action elements involved at all, where there's and I mean like in the sense of maybe Mass Effect or a hack and slash. Like I want to see just like a dialogue only video game and see how well they can do that. And with Walking Dead, that was a pretty good system right there. Like that's why I've always been a big fan of point and click adventure games. And we should always strive to kind of advance the medium, or try new things out, or really involve the audience. But on the flip side, I don't want us to become so overly cynical. And that's a problem I have with a lot of major players in the industry, where we're just becoming so overly cynical. We don't even see the positives anymore. Where
Hmm.
like Yahtzee Croshaw, who, by his own admission, he only focuses on the negatives, and characters like him, like I feel, the fact that there's a sense of we need to be accepted right now, and if there's not this huge acceptance of video game storytelling, then they're gonna be very overly critical about it. And I do feel like that's kind of hindering our growth because we're not even appreciating what we have. And it's just one of those things where I certainly hope that we can think we always look forward to, okay, we can advance this industry even more, but also just be aware of what good is already there in terms of the storytelling.
Yeah, and always always push forth creativity instead of having the same things. We want something new, and that's what with some games. I'm trying to name some example here, but that's what we should be pushing towards with newer generation more than actually just graphics. You know,
Set DMC as the new standard of Devil May Cry in your hearts, and just don't even try to bring back old memories because you're just going to be wrong.
I won't go that far, but
I will, and I'll bring on any flame that comes with it.
I hear you. I hear you. So yes, Devil May Cry is a worthy purchase.
I'll definitely recommend it to everybody going on out, buying, and really there's nothing else that's out except for Anarchy Reigns, but I think this is probably actually the more universally well received one. I haven't played it myself, and maybe it's better, but for my money, I would probably say Devil May Cry is the better bet, and I personally love this game. And I'm not even sure. I'm not sure if it's game of the year yet, but I will definitely see how the year progresses and then come back to it.
Yeah, we still got another hack and slash in the works with Metal Gear Revengeance. That seems hopefully promising, since it's from Platinum Games, as we've brought up before.
They're taking over the gameplay side, but apparently they're bringing in a lot of the Kojima staff for the story elements.
We'll see. We'll see.
It wasn't even supposed to be Raiden. It was Gray Fox or Frank Yeager or whoever you want to call it. And the team just said like, oh, we want to do Raiden, and Kojima said, okay, that's fine. I mean, he's had down before by just by life and the fact that nobody will let him leave the Metal Gear franchise anymore. So I think he just like at a point where it's like, yeah, okay, just take good care of it. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the next Metal Gear games that come out. It's going to be Revengeance, and then it's going to be not Peace Walker, but
got Dead Space 3 next month, right?
Space 3 and let me quickly look it up. Aliens, Colonial Marines, and then you have Crisis 3, which I certainly will avoid because I hated Crisis 2. That was a piece of shit. That is everything I hope the first-person shooter genre does not go towards.
Is it just more about like look at these graphics?
Look at the dewdrops on this leaf. This is fucking impressing you. And God, that game was just lifeless. It was designed. It was basically a camel. It was designed by committee, and it was absolutely just so boring and so dull. Nothing about it which is special. And I hope that all the developers hear this, just because I want you guys to, for God's sakes, please. Far Cry 3 was awesome, and then you guys, no, this is not what I was hoping for from you guys from Crytek. But anyway. Rayman Legends. I haven't played Rayman Origins, but I've heard it was one of the best platformers that came out for in recent memory. So, Rayman Legends, I hope it's even better.
Hope so too. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I probably didn't, and probably had this in my head since the last time we recorded. But I did during the time since our last podcast, I did beat Binary Domain and saw Looper alongside Django and what the hell was it? The Mass Effect anime movie. I think I linked you to that too a while back. And Seven Psychopaths, which is fantastic.
Yes, yes, it is. Um, oh, oh gosh, oh, hold on.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to bring it up because I don't know if you've have seen any of those two films that I linked you to on a while ago. But yeah, Binary Domain is fantastic. It's a good third-person shooter made by Japanese dudes, and it even though some of the characters, especially the main one that you play as, is intentionally made out to be this kind of uh, just kind of generic American action guy, but a lot of what works about it is just the gameplay. Most of all, is very unique and no, and diverse because you always trying something different with it because you could since you're fighting robots, you can always just go with it and with a very different frame of mind than most generic third-person shooters. We just go in cover and start shooting things, and this one kind of mixes things up with just because the robots are just they don't stop. You got to like either shoot them in the legs or in the head, and what's awesome about it if you shoot the robots in the head, they start attacking the other robots. So if you ever get in a situation where they're like just too much, you're like overwhelmed with like robots coming at your ass, and they just shoot a couple in the head, and then they'll help you out and start shooting the other robots, which is really awesome. And the boss battles are really good too.
Went under everybody's radar, but actually turned out to be a lot better than people would have kind of given it credit for. And that actually looks like a pretty damn good game that I can't wait to wrap my hands around.
It's a lot of fun. The voice commands are hit and miss. There could have been some opportunity for I guess more creative commands, but it for the most part the only kind of downside of it is just some of the commands do work some of the times, and sometimes they don't. Like the AI partners sometimes don't do anything, but you're pretty good with them on your side regardless. I more often than not they didn't really use the commands a lot, which is a shame since they put in the time to actually have you be able to do that with your 360 headset. But a lot of what the commands are attached to is kind of how your squad sees you, like how they perceive of you, whether they like you or not, and if they like you enough, it affects some story beats in the game, which is pretty interesting. Some interesting ideas, but overall is a fun game. If you want to shoot up some robots, and this game is for you. It's really good. Uh, Japanese take on the Terminator. I think it's pretty damn good.
I I love me some covering and shooting and acting. I love some Japanese developers putting in some American soldiers in there because I just love their interpretations of it. But
That's
yeah,
that's the fun part of those characters. That's why, because the Japanese take on those characters is really good.
and speaking of really good, let's talk about something that's not very good, and that's the news release of Activision releasing The Walking Dead Survival Instinct in March. For those of you who don't know, Walking Dead Survival Instinct was a little less than a year ago, and it's been announced for the 360, the PS3, PC, Wii U, and it doesn't look even close to being ready. It looks like one of these games that look like a debacle. The fact of the matter is that one of their quote unquote trailers is just Norman Reedus and in the Walking Dead TV show went on camera and just say like, "Oh, the game's coming," and that was basically it. That was their trailer. They
That
don't even have
sold me. I'm sold. Maybe it's got Merle and Daryl. I'm in.
It does sound like it's going to be the cultural staple mark of our generation, and it doesn't look ready. And the fact of the matter is, like, okay, it wasn't even that like it was strange because like the fact of the matter is the trailer came out. Everyone said it doesn't look good. It not even just with the trailer, but the gameplay doesn't look good. It doesn't look ready. And now they're just pushing it to come out in March. And really, just the only thing that is pretty obvious is like, okay, they don't even care that it's good or not. They just like, okay, we'll push it out to sell shit for more Walking Dead stuff.
It probably will sell, unfortunately, but it's sad that a fan made trailer was a lot better than the trailer they put out.
Fan, because apparently some word going around that it was actually somebody who was working inside of the company who did it in their off time, and then one of their superiors saw it and then just said like, "Oh, we'll just load it up now and make that the thing." And yeah, the fact that like that trailer was actually cut out from like interviews from IGN. It looks bad.
Mm-hmm. It's just a cash in on the success of the Telltale's Walking Dead. So that's pretty much what it is.
And the success of the TV series, and it looks really, really bad. And like, unless there's some sort of miracle comes to turn it around, this looks like one of the probably going to be most obvious games to be a huge failure section of video games this year.
It probably will. It'll probably be in the end of year Billy Thumbs Awards.
I would save a slot there for the Walking Dead Survival Instinct Award goes to Walking Dead Survival Instinct for just being this horrendous. Well, maybe this horrendous. I don't know. Frankly, I'll have to play it first. But if these are the first impressions of what the game's going to be like, it doesn't look too.
No, it doesn't really look too promising if it's only a couple of months until release, and that's all they've shown in terms of footage or trailer for that matter. They didn't even go as far as doing, a CGI trailer as most games do, but it's a telling sign there that there's not much value coming out of this game, to be honest. But it's probably gonna go down in our Bloody Thumbs Awards, along with the prestigious previous nominees and winners of 2 years ago, I believe, with along with Mr. Caffeine and the PSN debacle, all the good stuff.
For seeing further their relationship with the industry, and frankly, this just looks very interesting, just because of the fact that it's like, okay, you have this really well crafted piece of beautiful storytelling with Walking Dead by Telltale Games, and it's like, we'll just put this shit out there with it. It's like, they'll like it too. Like, I would say it's probably like one of the, there's a guy who just like goes to MIT and he gets all the good grades, and everyone's like, wow, he came from nothing, and he's so awesome. He's cool. And then he's got his like little brother who's like this drunken wreck of a man who's like, damn it, I'll sit on the couch here and leech up your success, and then that feels like what survival instinct is.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of shit, the shitstorm that arose from the Dead Island Zombie Beta Edition.
Yeah.
I wanted to get your take on that. The Deep Silver apologizing for all that.
Yeah.
What'd you think about this? Is this I think some of it got out of proportion to me. It's a pretty dumb special edition, but I didn't think it merited that that huge of a backlash, really.
No, it doesn't deserve that kind of like, oh, this is the worst thing I've ever seen before in my life. It's not that bad, but it is something that Deep Silver should have taken a look at and like, okay, this is not exactly probably the best thing out there with our name on it, and we really should know better than this, but they say, oh, we'll just sell a couple more copies if we have this kind of weird special edition. I mean, they're the guys known for having a game where the CG trailer was nothing like the game. Their marketing section is kind of almost dissimilar, and I understand that they kind of think that that's how they got their success, but this is just something that's kind of in poor taste. But I didn't think it was anything worthy of saying, "Oh, what the fuck is this shit?" Like this is you cannot have this stuff out there. There are children out there. Sandy Hook Elementary stuff. And by the way, I have something to say about that just because of recent events.
Sure.
It's certainly not done in probably the best of interest, but it's certainly not to the level I thought that it deserved to be looked at.
Yep, I agree. I don't really have much to say on the matter there. It's just, yeah, I think it was probably sort of bad timing, maybe not. But yeah, it was pretty dumb. I would even buy it if it was if it was that. I don't know if they're still gonna go along with that. It would have been actually funny if it was just a dude in a banana hammock. But even though that's probably not even
The guy smiling, "Hey, come on by Dead Island."
yeah, then nobody would say it. Nobody would have said anything. But yeah, but that it would have really make sense for that game because it's kind of has its kind of weird cynical tone. It was like definitely opposite of the first trailer for that game. If the game starts off with "Who do you voodoo, bitch," you're gonna be strapped in for a ride on that one.
It certainly is one of those franchises that should have been just looked at like, okay, listen, like let's just like it has more in tone with almost like Dead Rising than something serious.
Yeah, if it was like Saints Row or something. If it was that banana hammock, bloody banana hammock special edition.
Unlock the Blade Banana Hemp now for DLC.
Although I was gonna say about the dildo bat, but that was only like given out for press. That dildo bat.
Structor. It's good.
Yeah, I barely I barely even used that weapon in the game.
It's more fun than functional. Where you're just
Yeah,
like, it's a dildo bat. This is awesome.
yeah, it was it was a fun for like 2 minutes, and then I just like, all right, pull out the guns.
Yeah. It's one of those things like, okay, for Deep Silver, those guys should have known better, and this will teach them. But honestly, the media kind of gravitates towards the weirder topics, like the fact that they have Django Unchained dolls that are being pulled or shelves because people have said like that it's disrespectful to slavery when they're not actually complaining about the movie, they're complaining about the merchandise from the movie.
Yeah,
Like, oh, these toys minimalize the actual effect that slavery had on the black America that the black races and on the black race, and then just nothing about the actual film, nothing, and
too
it,
soon, I say.
it's too soon. We should only make film. We should only make films and merchandise that revolve around fourth century. So maybe it's like talking with the Byzantians about like I don't know spice trades.
Well, I'm sure there's been some sort of action figures or antique dolls that were from the Civil War, and no one's been pulling them off shelves because it undermines the events that happened. It's just seems very in the moment and motivated because of just what the film is about, I guess, and not the film. Well, not what the film's about, but what they've heard of it. Most for the most part. And if you see the film, it's just like over the top
It,
violence. I mean, you can't take it seriously. There's a heads blowing up, which is awesome, but you can't You can't take it too seriously.
Oh, no, you can't. Strange thing is that it is in absolute support of the idea that slavery is a terrible institution. There's not a single scene where it says like, oh, slavery was good for these instances. Like, no, it's pretty much saying like, okay, it turned people into subhuman creatures, and this was just absolutely abysmal. And Quentin Tarantino's happened to have that be set up as kind of the basis of the movie. It's just kind of weird how people get really offended when fictional stories tackle certain aspects of life. That it's like, oh, by making it a fictional story, you somehow minimalize the actual importance of this.
Mm.
And that's kind of one of the things that I didn't like about the fact that I think it was Capcom who was the publisher of the 6 Days to Fallujah game, where it was going to be about a bunch of soldiers stuck in Fallujah, and that apparently it was supposed to actually deal with real life, quote unquote, real life situations. But they just decided to say like, oh no, because it's actually dealing with something real, we can't have a video game about it.
That makes sense.
Why talk about the issues when you can blame other people? For instance, the Sandy Hook Elementary shows, which were absolutely abysmal. I think the guy should, the man who, I don't even want to mention his name or look it up just because I don't want his name to be known. I want him to go down in history, just that guy who nobody will speak of just because nobody wants to think about him or give him the benefit of being remembered. That fucking asshole who's going to burn in the bowels of hell if there is a just and loving God out there. And what I love is the fact that there's been in Congress, there's been more focus on video game violence and how it affects people rather than gun control laws. And this is fucking ridiculous. I love this just because I'm smiling right now just because it looks so crazy. Like Biden, well, fortunately, Biden had a very neutral status when the white where Congress kind of started having these hearings on video game violence and how it affects people. There's this the fact that they're also including legislation. There's like I think there's this female lawmaker, senator from Minnesota, I believe, who was trying to get video games, have them have mature rated games be financially I have to be a little bit more expensive than regular video games that would be like E or T, for E for everyone or T for teen. The problem is that we had this shitty discussion before. Congress said that video games are art. You cannot put a vice law on art. That's inhibiting freedom of expression. And these people are driving me fucking batshit crazy. This
Mhm.
is ridiculous. For God's sake, it's like we have this goddamn amnesia every single time, 4 months go by.
Yeah, yeah. People, how many millions of people bought Black Ops, and where's the violence? Where's the violence?
There was something that I did see where it was okay. Can you imagine? I'm gonna explain to you the content of this story, and I want you to guess. It deals with murder, and at the very end, the two main characters jokingly almost try to rape a woman.
Yeah. Hello.
Hello.
Yo. Hello.
Yes, hello.
Oh, I think you cut out. It's a serious shit right here.
It deals with murder, and at the very end, these two gentlemen attempt to rape a woman or jokingly rape the woman. As they don't go through with it, but it's still pretty disturbing. Can you imagine what this is and what medium it belongs to?
I gotta say video games, man.
You'd be wrong because the lawmakers and senators and congressmen, and basically people who are 40 years separated from common sense, would think. This actually belongs to the story of the Two Gentlemen of Verona, written by William Shakespeare for theater. This shit has been the weird, disgusting content has been there since the dawn of time. You cannot use this as scapegoats anymore, especially since it's proven there hasn't even been conclusive evidence. In fact, there's been evidence concluding that there's no conclusive evidence about about how video games cause violence, and it drives me up the wall. Why is this still here? And even Adam says like, oh well, it might be doing something. We always have to keep an eye on it. Like, no, we've done this before. God damn it, we've shown everybody. We've done everything we can. We took the ESRB. We made it our own rating system. We've made it clear. We made it more clear than the movie entertainment industry did, or the CD or the music industry. But no, we're the new guys on the block, so we have to get the shit kicked out of us before anyone realizes what we're doing.
Yeah, it's just all that is in all that has been put in place, and you just it's such a very complex and broad issue that you can't keep blaming things and expect things to change. It's going to happen anyway, regardless. It might be motivated by video games in some ways, or in another way. You can blame anything.
Yes.
Really, I mean, it's depends on the person and the situation. You just can't blame one thing. It's a very complex, and it's such so much that goes into it. Yeah, you just can't. It's just very dumb to blame one thing, and it's just
You're wrong right there.
what
You're using rational thought. That is
what what
to make something hyperbolic and crazy and stick with it.
I hear you, but I don't know. Taking away those assault rifles is not gonna really change anything, to be honest. The there's some strict gun laws in cities like Detroit, and there's always violence going on there. So I don't think that's gonna really change anything. I'll agree in some capacity. There's some weapons that are, yeah, maybe a bit too excessive for individuals to own, but it just really goes down to a lot of it is what people don't want to admit is mental health, and just the consumption of prescription medicine, man.
Well, I don't have a problem with. I'm not going to outright say like, oh, we should ban guns entirely, or just get rid of assault rifles, or have a 6 year background check for individuals wanting a gun. I'm not saying that. I'm saying let's look at something that actually matters. Video games do not cause deaths. Guns cause deaths. And I don't remember the Sandy Hook shooter just throwing discs of Mass Effect 3 at them.
I would. No, not at all.
Have bigger balls than anybody in the society, just because nobody would be able to take you seriously afterwards, yet you still wanted to put yourself out there.
Yeah, it's just it's good. I mean, things like that is gonna happen. You got at least try to take precautions in order to prevent it. At least have an idea that you're trying to prevent it. But it's regardless, it's gonna happen. Things like that is gonna happen. You can't stop that. And you could have used something else, a car, anything else. We're gonna ban cars now.
Yeah, I'm not going to comment on the gun thing just because the gun thing is not the issue that I really want to focus on. But anyway, may I suggest we move on to a different topic?
Yeah, that's fine. I think that this is as far as we're gonna take it there. It's already been spoken about to death. I'm sure people are already tired of hearing it, but it's something we gotta be aware of at least.
I mean, show our opinions of what's going on and how we feel about these things.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you wanted to, I don't know if you still wanted to discuss a little bit about I guess the year of 2012 in retrospect, and maybe some couple of um, games or that you're looking forward to this year?
Sure. Let's go into 2012 and what we had as our. Okay, let's talk about what were our favorite games of 2012.
No, I'd be happy to discuss that. I did a video a while back, and some of that list has changed since then because I played some games after 2012 that I got for Christmas. So it's tough for those lists because we're not really reviewers in a sense. We just play games and talk about them for shits and giggles. As much as we like to say we're legit,
Legit to quit.
we're average Joes who love the video games, but it's so much because it was a lot of great titles in 2012 and so much to list here. But the ones that come off the top of my head were definitely Binary Domain, Hotline Miami, some Mass Effect 3 action there, and Max Payne 3. What else? Hitman Absolution, of course. The Witcher 2 coming on the 360.
You know what the saddest thing is? Out of all the games that I brought back with me to Wilmington, I forgot Witcher 2 back in Virginia.
Oh man.
My heart has been stabbed by the betrayal of my own psyche just because I should have remembered that and I don't, and next time I get up there I will grab it and I will finish it and I will enjoy it.
Yeah, it's a great game. I mean, I'm not gonna say it's the perfect game, but it was good. I liked a lot of things about it. And a lot of the game really resonated with me with its. I just cause since I recently got into the dark fantasy stuff, it's really good. Mature fantasy game doesn't really uh, dumb it down in terms of story, and it's just very uh, a lot of the things that happen are kind of just black and white things like that. It's not really just this is good, this is bad type of thing, which I liked a lot. It's not very watered down in terms of the RPG and choice mechanics and things like that. It's very one or the other.
It is very open and it doesn't treat the player like an idiot, like, oh, this is good, this is bad. It's like, oh, okay, these are different shades of gray.
Exactly. That's what I loved about it the most, and it's overall presentation and characters were really good. It got me to read some of the books that for a game to do that, it doesn't it did a pretty good job. I mean, just to have me invest in the reading the more about the books and the characters and the lore and about plowing whores and wenches.
We have more of that reading material available to our children these days, just because of books talked about contemporary American literature that have wenches in there.
hmm that and what else? Sleeping Dogs was one of the surprise hits of last year as well. It's gone through development hell, and it was very fortunate that it saw the light of day and didn't disappoint at all. I think it's very good game that it doesn't really do anything completely new, but what it does is pretty fantastic. And even some of the story beats a bit cliche, but they pull it off well.
Yeah. I'm glad Sleeping Dogs was released just because it's refreshing to see not a developer make an open world game that isn't GTA, but also one that takes place with a protagonist who isn't just a Caucasian guy who just happens to be down on his luck.
hmm Yeah. Well, what about you?
Yeah, okay. Walking Dead, obviously.
Walking Dead. I forget.
We can talk about Walking Dead afterwards if you'd like. And Walking Dead, Spec Ops: The Line, I absolutely adore the hell out of that game. That game is what I think every single war game from now on should look at and go, okay, maybe we should be kind of more like this where we're actually questioning whatever the hell we're doing. Halo 4. I love Halo. That in this game, Halo 4 is one of those that just I think it may be the best out of the series. Although there's some things that are a little bit repetitious about mission structure, it is certainly one of those games that just drags you in and just it is it's nearly flawless. I love the hell out of this game. It is wonderful, and the fact of the matter is that this game could end and just be done with the entire Halo franchise, and I would be happy about that. Mark of the Ninja. I was really surprised at how intricate the game is, and just that stealth elements in a 2D environment. Surely you jest, but seriously, this is so good. It's done by the guys who made Shank and Shank 2, but yeah, this is just something pretty special, actually. And speaking of good stealth games, Dishonored. I have to say, Dishonored is right up there. This is one of just one of those games that makes you realize how just brilliant developers can be, and just making a new idea, making this alien world seem as fresh and innovative. The storyline's not incredibly. It's not like Inception level, like oh that blew my mind, but it's a well told story. I'd say it's very along the lines of Count of Monte Cristo. For those of you who've seen the movie, which is on YouTube for free, I think right now, so please go see it. Starring Jim Caviezel and Guy Pearce. It's really good, but it's very similar in tone, and I love that kind of Victorian era sort of revenge story, and it's got this steampunk aesthetic, and I absolutely love The Darkness 2. The Darkness 2 is one of those games where it is so much better than it has any right to be. It is one of those games that has the gameplay, the presentation, and just everything about the game flows into each other perfectly. And it's not as well polished as some of the other titles, but it is certainly an enjoyable ride. It's good. I love this game. I love the tone it took with the series, and I love the fact that it's a story about okay, you're living out this kind of revenge fantasy of you being kind of the head of the mafia, and you're going to war against this dark occult, but then like you're also split between going to this very sedate psychiatric ward, and you're actually torn between, okay, which reality is real? Because they actually both make very good arguments for why you're crazy and you should stay in their particular reality. With that, and also just Mass Effect 3. I know people have had a big old problem with Mass Effect 3's ending, and I agree with you. Even with the extended edition, I think it's not as strong as it could have been. But it's once again just because I think Casey Hudson shut everybody out and didn't let everybody, all the writers kind of have their say in the matter. But the fact is that 95% of this game is golden. The gameplay is great. The characters are wonderful. The presentation is awesome. The soundtrack is epic. It hits all the right notes except for the last one. And even though it's a lot better than what it could have been. I'm sorry. Even though it didn't reach that level of what it could have been, it's still a great note to end on for the series.
Yeah, that game had, it's minor issues here and there with some of the side quest stuff, and a little bit of the reliance on DLC, and not really a whole lot of kind of really good single player DLC that we got for Mass Effect 2, but the overall package is really good for a sequel to a great series of games from BioWare.
It's a great game, although I do wish people would, and I do wish people would just stop focusing so much on that one element of it that they didn't like, and that was just that kind of had a sour note. But honestly, it was not as bad as people are putting it out to be. Like, oh, this completely ruined everything. It shat on the entire series. Well, I don't agree, and I think it's actually very, very. It's actually it's actually a really well made game.
Yeah, I mean, it had regardless of that, it had some it did have small issues, but not too bad. I can overlook them. Slightly weird pacing issues. I heard that the beginning of that game was supposed to be like in the middle. That would have been actually better in terms of the pacing because it's just like you're going around the galaxy and and it feels like you've been gone for a while. It's like you think Earth would be would be nothing by now, but it's just but I overlooked that fact because it was a entertaining game nonetheless. I just you can't really nitpick too much like that, and then you just ruin your whole experience. But that beginning would have been really beneficial in like in the middle, like you're uh, gathering up, a group of people and an army in the beginning, and then like the shit hits the fan like in the middle when you're on Earth. That would have been actually a lot better, in my opinion. But that's regardless of that, still a good game.
Yeah, I do think that would have been better if it was just kind of like, okay, we are building people up and like the councils believe us, and then in the middle, that's when everything kind of comes together. But regardless of what they intended it to be or what their plans were, the game that came out was still very good, and I'm eagerly looking forward to what else BioWare and company put out for their next game. And maybe if they do revisit the Mass Effect series, which they've been saying that they have, I hope they, at the very least, acknowledge the fact that they didn't make the ending that everybody wanted, and just continue on from there.
Yeah, I hope so too, and maybe EA will learn something from that whole fiasco. Maybe not. Who knows?
Still pushing multiplayer for every single game that they even have out there makes me think like, okay, they're not even listening to a lot of their video game constituency, shall we say?
Yeah, I'm surprised that the what is it, the CEO or whoever who was the guy that made that statement about the games you got was the games you buy, the games you got.
Oh, it doesn't matter. He's just an idiot, and I hope that nobody ever looks to forward to look to him for a good opening statement.
Yeah, but whatever he does, I'm surprised he still has a job at this point. But
It's a fun thing to open up with. Fire your writers just because that's not good. And Alan Wake's American Nightmare. I was really, really surprised at this game. It came out early 2012.
yeah, that was really an overlooked one because it came out so early. Completely forgot about it.
It is yeah, it's a follow up to Alan Wake. It's not technically a sequel though, but
It,
what the case may be. It's
it's
uh,
more yeah, it's more like standalone. It kind of it fixes the minor issues the game for the gameplay it had, and it tweaks a lot of things, and it's a lot. I think it was a lot more better experience in terms of gameplay at some moments than the at first Alan Wake.
yes, I absolutely agree that it's actually in a lot of ways superior to the complete the retail game of just Alan Wake, and it's if yeah, I would say if Alan Wake, the first Alan Wake was like Stephen King, this Alan Wake is a lot more like Twilight Zone.
Oh yeah,
Tone is it's campy, but it's still very dark. It does a lot more experimental stuff with the presentation, which they were hinting at with the writer and the signal. And but it's not as I think sedate as Alan Wake's sort of presentation, where they were worried about okay, we'll just work with the elements that we've got. With this one, it's like okay, let's experiment, let's go a little bit more crazier. And I'm really happy with this game, and surprisingly enough, just like Halo 4, this game could have ended the Alan Wake franchise because like it's a little story that they have, and there's like a little cap, like oh, this could be the end or this could be the beginning. Who knows? But in case they if Remedy never makes another Alan Wake game, then this one is a nice note to leave on.
yeah, I think so too. Remedy's a very good developer, one of my favorites, and that was a good standalone thing right there. I liked it a lot. I hope we get a spinoff with Barry Wheeler, man. Come on.
I, agree on this subject. You like Barry. I do not like Barry, and we shall.
Maybe the old gods of what was it Asnoff or Nosgard or whatever. Those two old guys. They're awesome.
Funny because they're Norse.
Yes.
And then yeah, well yeah, what is it? Yeah, damn it. Now I'm really thinking about this. What is it? The gods of
Thunder. I gotta look.
uh,
Uh, Google faster.
or
Asgard, yeah. Old
yeah,
gods of Asgard.
oh, son of Odin.
The music was good too by those guys. Sounded nothing like them, but it was funny how they were playing that off and those I really like those small touches they had with your kind of to give you a slight break from like all the hectic and overwhelming action throughout the first game and American Nightmare with all those radio broadcasts. So the radios you find and listen to the show to the
Yeah,
local radio shows. Those were
yeah, of the radio shows they had.
yeah.
Oh, shoot. Oh, yeah. It reminded me a lot of a Prey, where like you would be going throughout the entirety of kind of the alien spaceship, and then you would stumble across these radios that were still broadcasting Earth signals. It's like people reacting to UFO sightings, and there was one really creepy one where this caller was calling in and saying like, "Oh, his daughter is acting weird," and it's like hinting at that like she's been turned. And so he goes into the kitchen and the call gets cut off and like that was like oh wow that was really really effective.
Yeah, those were nice little touches there.
Um,
There were
uh,
also some good arcade titles as well.
our arcade section did better than the retail section last year, or in my opinion, like they actually had much more interesting offerings than what the retail selection was offering.
Yeah, a lot of bang for your buck, as they say with Dust and Fez. From what I've heard, I haven't played Fez, but Dust and Legion Tale and Journey and all that good stuff, all the goodness.
Also, uh, there's also one game that I'm really, really happy to have played, which was Cinemora, which is a shoot 'em up video game that was done by Grasshopper and Digital Reality, and it was this kind of the side-scrolling shooter game where you got to play as just one of those get to play as a plane, and it's so weird just because it's a story about time traveling anthropomorphic Hungarian speaking animals fighting a giant war while the narrative structure is broken up into a non-linear manner. And if you thought that was confusing, wait till you actually see it in action because it's a beautiful game. There's a lot of really cool boss battles, a lot of cool varieties of a lot of cool varieties of planes to use and their special abilities, and it kind of reminded me a little bit of Crimson Skies, but with kind of a 2D environment. And it's very interesting, and it's one of those really fun games that you could easily enjoy while you can dig a lot more into the universe and all that. But on just a basic level, it is really really fun to play.
Yeah, that and Catherine, which I haven't had the opportunity to play. That's on my list of games to check out from last year, and I think I brought up Max Payne 3 already.
Not a fan of Max Payne 3. I think that it was well intentioned, but I'm not. I'm starting to grow really really tired of the Rockstar protagonists where they're cynical to the point of being overbearing with their cynicism, where it gets to the point where you just say to yourself, okay, come on, just get on with the program, actually get into the story, and so like, oh, us Americans are terrible, but these Brazilians are no better. My friends, they're not my friends, and it just for me, Max Payne, it was I like the character of Max Payne and I like the setting, but it definitely felt like, okay, it's Dan Houser and company trying to do a lot more of that cynicism in it. But I do like the presentation and the gameplay that they had. I just wish that it was a little bit more.
I hear you. I really liked it a lot, and I think I hear what you're saying with the kind of tone and with that game and how cynical it was, but I think I won't use this as an excuse, but I hear where you're coming from. But if you played the past two games, I think it makes a whole lot of sense. How his life is kind of starting to spiral even more since like the first game. He's always like getting into shit and kind of knows he's a fuck up, but he still ends up fucking up a lot. But I enjoyed it a lot.
Well, and I'm not saying that that's wrong. That if you played the three, the other games that it adds the experience. But and if you didn't, then it still be kind of should be judged on the same merit. Where it might be different. Just because like you wouldn't look at Game of Thrones just as like, okay, it's just one book in the middle, and if I can't immediately understand it with all these character interactions, then it's a bad book. Or like Harry Potter, where it builds along each other.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's perfectly fine on its own. But it does nice to have that frame of reference from the previous two games. But the music was really well used.
I like the use of the music. I thought the voice acting was very good. I did like the dialogue, and that there was a lot of subtlety in everything actually. So, good on Rockstar for that end. Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot to kind of look into in terms of that game of if you want to really get philosophical about it and things like that. Like the ending at the airport and then just like the music playing. I don't think you hear any gunshots because he's just like Max Payne's become so desensitized with like violence and things like that. But maybe that's looking in too deep. But
Oh, no,
I think it
never.
was intentional. But I hear you. Some people are um, mixed about it, but it's very competent third-person shooter.
Yeah, yes, it is. I will not say that the gameplay is broken at all. I think it's a very solid basis for the gameplay right there. And Max Payne, it's just one of those things that it didn't wow me the way that I think it wowed a lot of people. I'm not saying it not in the way that it wowed you. I'm just saying that for myself.
No, I get it. I get it. It's just subjective. So that's the world we live in, the subjectiveness right there. Uh, no, I think that's about it. I probably forgot something, but there are other games um, that were received well that I haven't played, like Far Cry 3 and XCOM, which I really want to play. But
XCOM is one of those that even people who I know that don't even like that kind of strategy element of real time going into that. It's actually fairly good. Uh, it's been getting their attention.
yeah, I look forward to playing that. So yeah, that's I think that was 2012. I actually wanted to plug a podcast that I listened to alongside with our friends over at bgbureau.com. Well, now I think that's called the BGB with their podcast, VG Confidential. So the other one was the Midnight Resistance. They did a literally almost 6 hour podcast talking about the year in 2012 of games, which is really it's a good listen. It took me like 3 days to listen to. So if you got nothing to do, you can listen to that for 6 hours. That was a lengthy podcast. That trumps anything I've ever partaken in listening to. But it was entertaining overall. So thought I give him a shout out there.
Very good. Bureau or BGB.
Well, the BGB are our friends over there, and then the Midnight Resistance was the one that did the 6 hour podcast. So two podcasts.
Now, now you said that they did two podcasts. Did they break it up into two parts, or was it just like two different ones that covered different spectrums?
Okay, two separate podcasts. One did the two separate from each other. They don't know each other. One did the like 6 hour retrospective of 2012, and the other one is our buddies over at the BG Bureau. So yeah, I don't know if I lost you there.
No, not at all. I have a beer right here, and it's almost midnight, so my mind's kind of wandering right now. But it is. Yeah, I think last year was very well done. Well, I think last year was actually progressive in the fact that we have original experiences in intellectual games such as Walking Dead or Spec Ops: The Line or Witcher 2, which really push morality into kind of a more gray area, and it actually made you feel a little bit more than other games did, and I like that kind of paradigm shift.
Yeah, The Walking Dead did that extremely well. The same with just the choices you make and just seeing that all play out in one way or another. It's like it's one of those games where you in some ways you want it to be a game with its RPG mechanics, like you want to be friends with everybody and save everybody, but it's just one of those things where it's not going to happen. And it was an experience, a really good experience to watch unfold.
Definitely.
And yeah, like I said, it had good moments of just kind of lightheartedness in a way that it was uh, that was made sense and was consistent.
It, but it was one of those games where you had the lighthearted elements that kind of need in this depressing atmosphere to keep you going. Because like in the comics, it's basically just like, okay, the world is fucked. You're all dead. There's no point. With this game, it's a lot more. It's this nice balance between the TV series and the comic books, where it's well written like the comic books. It's almost more hopeful than what the TV series shows, but it's not afraid to go into the really really dark stuff that the TV series just kind of sidesteps.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it. So that is the Far Cry 3. I mentioned that one before we move on.
Like,
You played it?
I have to play. It's good.
I have not. I have not played it, but I thought I mentioned it.
That is on kind of the best of everyone's game of the year list, which is kind of very interesting, just because Far Cry 2 really didn't even crack that slot.
Yeah, that's one of those one of those things that was surprising to see do really well since it. I mean, and see on everybody's game of the year list because it came out pretty near the end of the year. Probably had some benefits for that rather than something like the Alan Wake's American Nightmare that came out early in January, and so some people um, overlooked that one.
Yeah, and it's just kind of a darn shame that people don't really look at some of the earlier stuff, even with like movies or what have you, where they kind of look at the sort of end stuff more favorably than kind of at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, and especially with Oscar season, a lot of those films that had come out probably earlier the year gets pushed forward more if they get a nomination. People are inclined, I guess, to check them out, like because they got nominated. So much like the games that get put on the video game of the year list that for whatever reason you probably overlooked, and I was very fortunate to have gotten to play games like Binary Domain. That was one of those that got overlooked.
Yeah, Main definitely one that kind of was a critical darling where people just really fell in love with it, and then it just kind of got ignored because all the bigger games kind of come on out and take take time and attention away from it, which is actually, I think, close to one of the questions that we have for this episode. But would you like to talk about kind of what's the game that you're looking most forward to for 2013?
2013. Ooh, I can't look really beyond like March or April. I'm sure there'll be more that people will be talking about that I'll take a look at if it's worth checking out. The ones that come to mind now, which like Bioshock Infinite and what is it? Probably Metal Gear Revengeance. I'm trying to remember if there are anything else that's coming out this year that I'm really looking forward to. But yeah, that in I'm sure there are other ones that I probably will play, but I'm just not not to a point where I'm looking forward to. I'm sure there'll be good games in their own right, but that and Splinter Cell Blacklist, which
Absolutely.
which that got delayed until August, so it'll be to like the near the end of the year. So regardless of the sort of story consistencies from leading into that from like Conviction to Black Ops, Blacklist. I was saying Black Ops. Uh, I still want to check it out because it seems like it's more of tweaked and fine tuned and more things added the version of Conviction, which I like the gameplay of Conviction a lot. So we'll we'll see if they'll have some sort of co-op in it or not.
Maybe they'll do something like they did with Conviction. Will they will kind of have a continue the mission? Like fingers crossed that they'll have the storyline going on outside of that main story with two different characters. And yeah, I hope Splinter Cell I keep saying Conviction. Splinter Cell Blacklist is really worth the wait. And I think it'll just be as the fact that it seemed to have been like it was going to be released for 2012, like late 2012, then early 2013, and then it's going to be pushed back a little bit later. And I have a feeling that they're working on trying to make it the best product because of all the feedback people have been giving it. And yeah, as you said, the storyline consistency is a bit of an issue that I have, but as long as it's a good game, that stuff is probably going to just immediately go away.
Yeah, I'm willing to overlook that if it's a good game and does some more to explore the character that is Sam Fisher. And what is yeah, that in crap, I forgot what I was gonna say, but yeah, it's sort of the same it's sort of the same thing that was going on with Conviction. That has been in sort of not development hell, but it's been pushed back a lot. It's supposed to be like originally supposed to come out in like 2009, and then close to release it got delayed like from March to like April, I believe, something like that. So but it shows in the final product that they put a lot of effort into it, and not a whole lot of issues are in the game. So that's good to know when you play a game from Ubisoft or mostly quality stuff.
Hear about the franchises.
Exactly. While yeah, Assassin's Creed 3, I didn't even bring that up. That's just now that I thought of it. I have some mixed feelings on it. I think it's still a good game regardless. I don't know. I think I got burned out by Assassin's Creed by the end of this, but I don't know. I I don't know. It's something that it had some potential. It still it nails some of the good some of the good parts in the game with all the putting you into the 1700s and meeting famous individuals like George Washington and Benjamin Franklin. I don't know. I just felt there were some issues that I had, and then I think they're still putting out patches still to this day. But it was there's just some issues that kind of changed my opinion on it from since it came out. But the best parts of that were like the naval combat missions were really good. I like that. I like that aspect of it. But I really prefer Brotherhood the most. I think I had the most fun in that game. It was like the most well received. I think Assassin's Creed in its series. I think that had a lot to do with that creative director leaving. I think they from Brotherhood. I don't think he did three. Maybe that's why. I don't know. There were a couple of side quests, but none of them really had much. You didn't really have much merit in doing them than you did in Brotherhood. But regardless, it's still a fine game. I just had my issues with it a couple times. Too much of that desynchronization going on for my taste. It felt a bit restrictive at times.
Yeah, one, two, and Brotherhood were definitely very focused and kind of polished. And then with Revelations and 3, it felt like, okay, they're just trying to find things to throw in there, whether or not they're actually need to be in there or not. Like, oh, we need to get people to buy this game, but we don't want to make it seem like, okay, we're just have the same engine, the same combat, the same everything, and like a different story. I know we'll throw this in there, like the tower siege combat stuff in Revelations was terrible. Where it didn't make any sense. Like, okay, you have your forces managing this like tower defense sort of situation, and then it just didn't. It was like, okay, I remember the time it was just one guy stabbing another guy in the background, then escaping, and now we have tower sieges. Like it felt really out of the wheelhouse of what the developers were originally intending for.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from with that. I had that sort of feeling here and there in three. It has its highs and lows, and I really, yeah, I wasn't upset about the ending at all. I didn't really care because I wasn't completely invested in the Desmond storyline like you were in Mass Effect 3. That's I mean I know they're two different games, and it had more of an effect on people with how the ending played out in that than Assassin's Creed 3. So it's not that huge of a big deal with the Assassin's Creed 3's ending, but with the Assassin storyline, it concluded fine. I think it's just one of those things where less animus, and just the Assassin storylines were mainly the strongest points in all those games. Really, that's pretty much what it was.
I agree with you 110%. There's the only thing that I really had a big thing against the Assassin's Creed series as time went by is like, okay, you guys aren't even really focusing on the Desmond storyline. The Desmond stuff is just the prerequisite to get into the real meat of the story. Like I would just happy they just had stories which were just, okay, you're in Italy or you're in Japan or you're in Brazil and you're doing these things, and it just like, okay, we don't need this future storyline because that's the boring part of Assassin's Creed, where it's like, okay, you have some nice characters, but they don't really do anything, and it's
Hmm.
if they do continue the series, I hope that they would at least acknowledge the fact that they have to put more stuff in there for contemporary times. Because unlike you, I didn't think the Assassin's Creed 3 ended well. I think it's one of those bum 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 wow sort of moments where um it's I thought it kind of betrayed what the game was originally about, and they just really need to do a total 180 and help fix themselves, or else they're going to get into a lot bigger trouble with kind of continuing the series down the line. If they just wanted to have like, oh, okay, it's just it's just the the living in the past segments, then I would have suggested that just get rid, then just end the Desmond storyline in 3, and then they don't have to deal with this anymore. But I think they're afraid that if they don't have this future-esque element into the Assassin's Creed games, people think like, oh, it's just a game that's taking place in the past, nobody will care, and then just will ignore it, which is not the case.
Not at all. The Assassin's Creed 3 ending I think it had an interesting idea. It was terribly executed. Yeah, that's pretty much what it was. Uh, I could see. I wasn't. I don't think a lot of people that got really that upset about it. Really.
I think after Mass Effect 3's ending, you could really do anything and just be like, well, it's not as bad as Mass Effect 3's ending did.
Yeah, and then and three was never really a whole lot about making choices. You just kind of following a kind of linear storyline.
Are you talking about Assassin's Creed 3 or Mass Effect?
Well, Assassin's Creed 3, the
Okay, yeah. There could be debate for either one, but yeah, for Assassin's Creed 3, from what I've seen in the cutscenes and from what one of my buddies, Kelly, in Australia was playing. Hey, Kelly, shout out to you, buddy. Um, it definitely seemed like, okay, it was much more linear. It didn't really feel like, okay, you were the main driving force of the story and you weren't that interesting of a character as opposed to the people around you.
yeah, that's why I think that's why people didn't quite get as upset about the three Assassin's Creed 3 ending. It's mainly because the whole series is never really been about making choices or anything. It's like I said, it's one of those. It's like a linear storyline kind of branch leading up to something. And whether that thing was good or not is just kind of how it panned out. But with like Mass Effect, it was just the whole series about making choices and building relationships and seeing how your choices affect the greater spectrum of things. Which three ending I felt completely betrayed everything that the series was about. So that's all I will say on that. We've gone on long enough about that before.
Yep, yep. So, yeah, those are the games we're looking forward to in the future. By the way, just jumping back to our 2013 segment, the only one that I think we didn't mention was Dead Space 3, which I'm really looking forward to because I'm a huge fan of the Dead Space saga, and although I'm apprehensive at what kind of design they're going for, especially with the fact that you can now do blocks and you're fighting against human enemies now and whatnot. I have faith in Visceral, and I hope that the game is good.
Looks like a RE6 situation.
Those words. La 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 la. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. You're not saying that. La 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 la.
I was only joking. Yeah, I hope it pans out well. I still haven't played the first two Dead Space games. I gotta get on that because I'm a fan of horror games. Sometimes I can't play them because I'm a big pussy. So I think that the introduction into the Dead Space series I will probably enjoy them. I just haven't played them.
Well, they're very very good games, and I would recommend going with Dead Space 2 just because you're not missing too much of the story if you are interested, and it is definitely the better playing of the two.
Yeah, I'll probably get two a shot. Uh, yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it pans out. I don't know. I hope that they pull off the co-op well because I don't know if you're adding another person with you, it kind of takes away the little bit of the kind of uh, the whole gist of the series. Like you're just alone trying to survive. That in and of itself is pretty terrifying.
Is and surprisingly, it's a lot more action horror like Aliens than the first one was a lot more just like it's a fair comparison to say like the first one was a lot more like Alien where it's a lot more tight corridors feeling like you're trapped, and the second one's a lot more like okay, there's a bunch of them coming after you, but you have to deal with them.
Yeah, I saw a little bit of footage of the demo for the third one. It kind of has a little bit of the Thing vibe going for it.
Yes, yes, where it's Event Horizon, The Thing, Aliens, just mishmash different of different mishmash. Funny because stomping on Alien, mishing them up. Where it's a different kind of conglomeration of different things, but it churns out its own identity. And what I really like it is about this kind of religious undertone with the game sort of. I can't remember what the religion is called. It's alien, not alien, unitology, where it's this fascinating backstory of kind of how these people became sort of subservient to it, and the fact that they're willing to get themselves killed just for their religion. And it is a good it is a it's a good game, and I frankly love Dead Space 2, and I think it's one of the highlights of this generation.
Alrighty, sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure there are other ones, other games for this year. GTA 5, we'll put that on there.
I don't know. I'm really apprehensive, especially with we smorgasbords of better offerings of want crazy silliness and ridiculous fun times. You got Saints Row, and then if you want the serious stuff, you got like Mafia 2, and even like different studios of Rockstar have done better than Rockstar North. I think is who do the GTA games, where it's like they one of the studios did Red Dead Redemption, and they have a better handling on the serious stuff. And I'm not. I'll be open minded, but just for me, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from. Mainly interested on see just to see how they pull off the kind of this overall scope they have planned, and see how they implement you being able to control, I think, more than one character during a mission. It's a lot of very interesting ideas, which I hope they pull off well and incorporate a lot of the better elements of their past titles since the release of, I mean, after the release of GTA 4, which at the time I think was a fine game, and then it just changed completely after you replay it again.
Yeah, I'm proud of everyone just because of the physics engines and how it looked and what tone they were going for, and then it's like Hillary Goldman over IGN. I could not disagree with his review anymore. Like, and that did not deserve a 10 out of 10. If like I will even set aside my vehement hatred towards Half-Life 2 and say that for that review, that was the most overrated game of all time, of Grand Theft Auto 4, where it just wow, that game, it had production value behind it, obviously, but damn it, was that just piss poor in the execution.
Well, the VGAs gave the Half-Life 2 Game of the Decade, so you're
Bullshit.
wrong on that. You're wrong on that.
Don't just spike for my intellectual knowledge, how to stimulate myself. I would say, oh, you know what? I could read Odysseus, or I could watch the 50 ways that dumb people died. I think I'll go with the book.
I don't know. I may be saying too much, but even though I haven't played any of the Half-Life games, I find it hard to believe how a silent protagonist is a top character in gaming. I don't know how they could pull that off, even whether it's true or not. Maybe that's probably subjective, or just one of those fanboy things to say.
You are exactly right. It is not subjective. It's nonsense. You can't be a character who doesn't interact. You don't have a character arc. There's nothing there. You are basically a vessel for developers to bark orders at you.
You make it what you want it to be, man.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? If you want, okay. I guess saucy got jerk offs over in the corner. They will be more than happy to talk to you about that. But for people who actually want developed characters and things that we can actually see with our minds, not with hallucinogenic drugs, then we'll let's just go with someone else.
Wait, do you like Anne Frank better than Gordon Freeman?
Do I like Anne Frank better than Gordon Freeman? I like random strangers that I find on the street, like the homeless man who's pissed himself. I would pick him up and say, "You, sir, I love you more than Gordon Freeman."
Well said. So yeah, that's a couple of the titles for looking forward to this year. Probably be more added to that list later this year.
Is there?
We will see. So I don't know if you want to discuss anything else in news before we get into questions. Did you want? You said did you want to bring up something about Barkley?
Uh, we'll have to say that for another time, just because we need to devote an episode to that. But I love Charles Barkley, Shut Up and Jam. I'm excited for the sequel because they're mentioning the Knights of Tir na Nog in their title, and that just makes me giddy. Just like watching that as a child on Fox Kids, that was. But no, let's jump into the questions.
All right, we'll do that. And the first question here is from Black Magic. Black Magic. We got to give him a shout out because he's been very very kind and courteous to be posting some stuff on the Blade Thumbs group page with his kind of retrospective reviews on some Spider-Man games, and everybody else who's been very very proactive on the group page as well. So thank you for that while we were away. And his question is, with a new year brings a new E3. Personally, I was underwhelmed by Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo at last year's conference, and instead thought the winners were third parties and publishers like Ubisoft. With that being said, even though it may be too early to speculate, what are you looking forward to from this year's E3 or any game-related conference?
I'm interested just because of the fact that as time has gone by, I think the developers have realized that we're not the Mountain Dew skateboarding that they all thought we were that marketing to originally. Because they've had the ridiculous things like they've had just press conferences like the Konami press conference from a couple of years ago. That was a disaster. And then you have Microsoft and Sony competing for basically for no reason because they don't really have independent franchise anymore. I mean Final Fantasy, Metal Gear Solid, Devil May Cry, and I've already said that. Grand Theft Auto. They're all multi-console now, and same thing with Microsoft side where they don't have really anything all to themselves, and it's just I don't see what the point is of E3 anymore because it just the original point E3 was like okay, this was really before the onset of the internet. Like okay, we don't know anything about these new games coming out. Let's look at this conference and see what they're announcing. But nowadays it's like okay, I knew that was coming. That was leaked beforehand. Like before the I think it was the 2010 E3 conference. They announced Halo Reach and Halo Combat Evolved Anniversary Edition, and that was leaked right before the E3 conference happened. And it's kind of now just to it's like okay, whatever trailers you're going to show, I'm going to see them like 5 minutes after they air on YouTube.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, E3's kind of lost a little bit of kind of any point to it. But by this point, I'll go to the point that Black Magic made that last year wasn't. For me, I didn't completely feel like any kind of the three kind of wooed me, and people would say that Nintendo has to be automatic because they got a new console. It just doesn't mean jack shit if there's not a lot of games worth playing on it until like a year after. But it was a lot more on actually like either third party games or publishers. I think it's going to be leaning more towards publishers in my opinion. Like Ubisoft had a pretty good E3, so out of all of the three, really.
Third party, big, large, top tier guys like Ubisoft and well, not EA, but just kind of the bigger guys who have the money to really market themselves wisely. The only thing I'm even really looking forward to at E3 is just either the debacles or the really crazy weird stuff that we can just talk about and discuss. Like, for instance, us talking about the Star Wars Kinect kids for God knows how long. It's like being excited, like, oh yay! It's the thing that we saw on the screen. It's pause menu, yay! But yeah,
I think the things that happen in the show are kind of more interesting the watch than what is being presented.
Yes.
That makes sense. Um, you got to bring back Mr. Caffeine if they do that, and they got this in the bag.
Well,
Ubisoft.
they need to do. Are you listening? Uh, Ladies and gentlemen, sit around and tell me if this is a good idea or not. That's all right. I won't be hurt. What we need to do is we need to bring back. We need to reunite Mike Myers and Dana Carvey, and then also put Mr. Captain up there so that they at the exact same time they synchronize their watches, and then every 10 minutes in the middle of the E3 conference hall, they just go diddle 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 diddle, and then then they stop and they stand there and then just wait for their clocks to mark the time again. Then they
Well, I follow Mr. Caffeine on Twitter. I try to get him on the podcast, but he's not responding to me. What's the deal, Mr. Caffeine?
what is up? What are your hopes? What game would you like to be associated with? And just how I don't even have a question for him. Just because I want to hear just him be on the show and just talk to us.
Mm-hmm. That'd be something to listen to. So, yeah, it's a very uh, small amount of games that are exclusive, whether they be from developers that I guess want to put out a certain game and a certain one of the three picks them up and they become exclusive. I think the only example I can give was like with the Bayonetta 2. That's like because what was it? I think it was Sega. Sega that wasn't even gonna pick it up because of I guess they didn't do well in the sales, and Nintendo took the risk in bringing that back to the fold for the quote unquote more hardcore gamers, I guess. So I guess it had a lot to do with not a lot of support for or sales for that game enough to justify a sequel uh, on Sega's behalf. See, I guess that's what it comes down to. If you're not supporting it, then you're probably not going to get a sequel to that on one of the consoles. It probably end up being picked up for exclusive. That's probably the only rare instances that happens.
I think it was that moment where it's like, okay, for Sega, it wasn't like it didn't do games. So it's like, okay, we can't really continue this franchise, but it sold well enough, and Nintendo said, okay, you know what, to get people on over to our new console, we will pick up the franchise and show everybody that we're still in the hardcore market, and we will entice people with this particular sequel that we have here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, probably. Yeah, that's probably all about it for E3.
And, so yeah, I'm not really looking forward to E3. Well, I'm not looking forward to it. I'm hesitant because it seems redundant now, the internet and with developers being able just to directly say, oh yeah, we got a new trailer for this thing, or we got a new announcement about DLC, or we're working on this new game, or we got a Kickstarter out. We don't need E3 anymore. And it seems there just seems to be less justification for it as time goes by.
Exactly. It reminded me. It was reminding me of that one part. Well, I think it was Microsoft. I think they were doing the something to do with Nike or working out. Remember that one presenter was like, if you have a body, you're an athlete. That was one of my favorite lines from E3.
Me in a Speedo. That is not true. That person is just lying to themselves if they ever came around and saw my workout routine. It's like then at 10 o'clock in the morning, try to get up. 12 o'clock in the afternoon, realize that you're never getting up and just continue eating chips. That's like that's all my schedule entails whenever I actually try to work out.
Yeah, I hear you. So Yeah, thanks for the question there, Black Magic. That's all we have on the matter of E3 so far. Uh, we'll watch it if something funny happens at this point,
We'll watching it in 10.
or for a live stream. And the next question here from Transmorpher.
Yay!
And the question is, what's the best opening to a video game?
Uh,
There are quite a few actually. Metal Gear Solid 2,
ooh, that's a good one. That's a really really good one.
BioShock. It kind of set the mood and putting you in the world of Rapture. Just that whole beginning part where you go into that submarine, was it? I'm trying to remember what it was. That chamber thing, and then it's talking about how great Rapture is, and then you see just how kind of desolate it is.
Yes. It
That
was, um,
that was really well done, and Mass Effect 2, even though it was kind of spoiled in one of the trailers.
yeah, yeah, it was. Uh, that would have been a great surprise going into it completely cold, but yeah, for anyone who hasn't played Mass Effect 2 and hasn't seen the trailer for it yet, please play because that is just one hell of an opening. And I'd say one hell of an opening is Batman Arkham City, where you're thrown into this kind of, I don't know about kind of the rest how the storyline kind of peters out, but the beginning, your Bruce Wayne is tied to a chair. He's imprisoned in Arkham City himself, and Hugo Strange's like, "Listen, I know you're Bruce Wayne, and if you try to do anything, I will reveal who you are, and I will mess you up." And that was like, wow, that like what a great opening. I just wish that storyline in particular was kind of carried a little bit more throughout the entirety of what was going on.
Yeah, they were just that was a good one. Then I think about it, and
That's
uh,
so it was also a pretty good one where the opening where you kind of go from this very calm, serene moment of just like, okay, what's been going on, and then like suddenly you're being attacked by necromorphs. You can't get out. You have no weapons. You're caught in a straitjacket, and it's like, okay, you don't even have the opportunity to fight back. You don't even have your arms free, and that's a great opening right there.
yeah, this one it might be not the most action-packed one compared to the ones we were discussing, but Deadly Premonition when he's on the phone talking about Tom and Jerry are codependent and has police brand cigarettes, that just set the mood for me. I'm gonna like this character, Francis York Morgan.
Uh, right on with that. I love the opening of the Chronicles of Riddick. I was a really big fan of the Escape from Butcher Bay opening, where it's just like you're being taken to this max security prison, and not only are you, it's not done in a cutscene where you see the entirety of the prison system and how deep it goes and how many locked doors there are going to be behind you. It's like, okay, this is going to be a challenge, and that game is still just just an outstanding opening for me.
Soul Reaver had a good opening, had some nice voice work and interesting gothic art style, and had that really nice cinematic, which is kind of set the mood for the game. Uh, trying to, yeah, those are the ones that come off the top of my head. And GoldenEye, I kind of remember a little bit of the beginning of GoldenEye. I thought that was pretty darn good.
Well, I mean, you GoldenEye for the N64 for the Wii.
For the N64, baby.
I remember nothing at the N64 level except for one or two instances where it's like, okay, it's like just flashes of like, oh, I remember that thing or I remember that thing, but not much else. What was the opening at the Soviet complex?
It might have been. That's why I was like questioning it. Like GoldenEye, I think was good. It was so long ago. I played that at a cousin's house once, and it's just I remember liking it a lot. So I could be completely wrong. It's just James Bond in just in training or something like that. Who knows?
But either way, GoldenEye is definitely a saga worth carrying on. I don't think the opening kind of level for GoldenEye for the Wii was actually pretty good. But that's the entire level, and that from beginning to end where you escape on the plane. But I don't think like at the very beginning it's very memorable. It's just like okay, it's kind of a slow creeping up to crescendo of violence and mayhem, but outside of that, I don't think that GoldenEye for the Wii had that strong of an opening that if you don't consider the actual entire level.
And Fallout 3, I like Fallout 3 had a pretty good beginning. You start off as an infant and you as you progress and it just goes by pretty quick. You get older and then shit hits the fan at that vault and all of a sudden thrown in to the outside world. I thought that was really well done. You don't see a lot of games or movies pull that off well without having some sort of kind of montage put in place.
But what was it? Shoot. Quickly say something. I'm forgetting.
Bears, bears.
Yes. No. Oh, now I remember. Halo Reach. I thought had a really strong opening where you just the very first images you see is the planet Reach completely in ruins. Everything's smoldering. Everything is basically just turned to ash, and then you see your helmet on the ground, and then it just starts like, okay, here's the beginning of the story, and then it's like, wow, that's a very strong statement to make right out of the gate.
Forgetting one that trumps them all. Barkley, shut up and jam. Right in, baby. You get that nice voiceover work of Charles Barkley talking about him being in the cyberpocalypse in New York with his son Hoops and his octoroon friend, great grandson of LeBron James.
Going on over to go see. Oh gosh, darn it! I can't believe I'm forgetting his name. He's
like Mr. Chin or something.
Yeah, he was. It was Mr. Chin or something kind of like one of those nicknames that like just seem to really really work well. Gosh darn it!
And meeting up with Larry Bird at the church, and then shit hits the fan when Barkley falls asleep, and then wakes up and surrounded by Michael Jordan and his policemen coming to arrest him because someone did a chaos dunk.
It that is that's like that's like the great like the what was that Harrison Ford movie where he's running away from a convicted from a crime he didn't commit?
The Fugitive.
Like that's basically like a fugitive-esque opening where it's like, okay, you're now on the run, go get out there.
Quick time event.
I love how random it is. Where it's like the quick time event, and I love the incorrect button input where it's like ding ding wah. It's like they just like you literally like squeezed a duck to make them like that sound effect to come.
A game show sound effects, and you get it right. Ding.
I think it is very important for video games to have a good, strong opening, or else you're gonna have players. Okay, when does this really start to kick off, or what is this really story about? It'll take a while for some people to kind of get into the groove of it, but and also surprisingly, I thought Half-Life 2 had a very good opening where it was we're introduced to City 17, where you just get off the train and you see this dystopian future of like this huge oppressive militaristic force closing off sections and having security checks, and that was actually a very effective opening, even though I don't really like the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think we got a good cavalcade of games with good openings. We could go on forever on that one. Enslaved, since you brought up earlier, Ninja Theory had a good opening.
How did that? Yeah, that's great. The fact that it's completely media res. It doesn't even like say like, oh, like the year is 3028. This guy is Monkey. He got kidnapped. It's just basically like, okay, Monkey is in one of these capsules and he can't get out. And then it's just like, oh, that woman escapes, and then he has to go find the woman to find out how to get out.
Yeah, it's one of those beginnings that where it doesn't tell you much, and you kind of learn about everything like as you progress.
And yeah, that I really you really can't ask for a better introduction than that. And like when the ship finally comes apart and you start to see like, oh, you're passing above the ruins of New York City. Like that's great.
Hmm. So yeah, thanks for the question, Transmorpha. And the final one for this episode is from Jack Burton.
Hey, Jack.
With so many standout games coming out early on this year's calendar, do you think games that would normally sell will get overshadowed by the likes of Tomb Raider, Last of Us, GTA 5, and Bioshock Infinite? No, I mean not necessarily. I think it depends on uh, when it comes out and just good word of mouth, pretty much. I think it even if some games get slightly overshadowed, they still end up picking up some steam later on, whether they be from people on podcasts talking about them or uh, articles raving about it. I think if it's a really good product, it won't go unrecognized for the most part. I think that was a pretty good example there was like from I think it's Hotline Miami. I think that when it first came out, it did get good good reviews. It really started to pick up steam like a month after
Yeah.
it came out.
It was, was realizing how awesome it was, and there really isn't a kind of an outlet for reviewing indie games or games that aren't really being released at the $60 price tag by the big publishers. But it's now nice to see that there are more people growing more conscientious about it. Like there's Destructoid does a lot of indie game reviews, and I know Reviews on the Run took a look at a lot of smaller games, and for instance, they even reviewed the Half-Life One fan remake, and it's one of those things where it's like, oh, that's really cool that they get to look at it. But looking at the video game kind of release schedule, uh, I think it's already started. Maybe like DMC Devil May Cry has been a pretty high profile game, but I think it's going to overshadow Sniper Ghost Warrior 2, which came out on the same day. And I didn't even know Sniper Ghost Warrior 2 was even coming out.
News to me.
I guess that's they didn't do a good job of the marketing there. And February, and I think Dead Space 3 is probably going to overtake Sly Cooper, the Sly Cooper game that's coming out, just because I think that's been like much more hyped up. I haven't seen anything about the Sly Cooper game that they've got coming out. I think maybe Aliens Colonial Marines will be overshadowed by Crisis 3 and Metal Gear Rising, just because it's coming out right before that. There hasn't been any overwhelming positive factors, and it just looks like, well, for me anyway, it looks just like another Aliens game where it's like, okay, you play as a space marine and you're shooting aliens. That's fun and all, but nowadays there's a lot more variety in first-person shooters, and I strained. Maybe it would be cool if you got to drive one of the kind of suits that Ridley pilots in Aliens, or maybe it's actually like a story that takes place. Supposedly, it's taking place after Aliens, where you're trying to find Ripley. But I would like to see kind of more expanded stuff. And they have been. There's word they were working with Ridley Scott when he was doing Prometheus, is to have a few tiebacks into that. But I think probably especially Metal Gear Rising and Crisis 3 are going to be so big they'll probably overshadow the game even before it's released, because Aliens is coming out a week earlier, but I feel like it's still going to get overshadowed.
Yeah, I think Army of Two, Devil's Cartel might get overshadowed with Bioshock Infinite and Gears of War.
That it's sandwiched between two huge games. It's like you have these huge, delicious savory sandwich buns with a little tiny piece of cheese in the middle. It's like I don't think that everyone's gonna realize that the cheese is there. They're gonna be like, this this bread that's been laced with tomato juices and basil and fresh, delicious spices is great. I don't know what this is though. This is just some cheese.
It's like the either tomato or pickles, depending on if you like tomato pickles or not. And that's most people don't like pickles, so that's gonna be like the pickles of that nice big old Kahuna burger
Big Kahuna Burger. That's the Hawaiian burger joint.
of that March month release there. Yeah, might actually happen. Who knows? That April, that Island Riptide might is coming out there with Injustice.
Yeah, it's just God's us, and it's interesting that Warner Brothers is getting NetherRealm Studios to basically make their own version of a DC Universe game, just because like they have incorporate a lot of designs, but it's definitely their own flavor of it. It's like kind of a more mature look than say like the animated series or the comic books that they've had. And oh my gosh, I didn't even see this one. Did you see March 5th's lineup?
We got Major League Baseball 2K13, MLB 13 The Show, and Naruto and Tomb Raider.
Man, Ninja Storm, Trace,
Oh, SimCity.
Tomb Raider as well, and then Castlevania, Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate. So for SimCity, I have a feeling like people will probably be occupied with some other things. But then again, actually, I think probably out of all these, maybe Naruto Shippuden,
Shapoopy.
Boop, Shaboopy, that girl is hard to get. A lot of ladies like the sim games where it's the surprising majority of sim players are a female demographic. Girl power out there, ladies. I love sim games, so please call me if you like them too, and we'll grab coffee sometime.
In SimCity.
My horrible, grotesque features in real life, and maybe in Naruto Shippuden because that's sort of a niche market. Tomb Raider's been kind of amped up as this big reboot and relaunch. Actually, you know what? Maybe Castlevania Lords of Shadow will be the loser, just because nobody was really hot on the last one, and the Major League Baseball and MLB, they're baseball games, so they're going to find their audience. And I don't know. It seems like actually out of all these, probably Castlevania might be the one that struggles the most, even though it has, I think, Kojima Productions behind it.
Well, that doesn't help too much that it's on the 3DS. So maybe that's.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's not Lords of Shadow 2, so.
Gotcha. I saw Lords of Shadow, Mirror of Fate, and I thought to myself, oh, okay, then that must be the next sequel because I haven't really been paying attention to the Lords of Shadow series. But if that's the case, then probably Naruto Shippuden will be the one that does not win.
No, okay, I won't say expectations, but I got a good feeling that Lords of Shadow 2 will be fantastic. I liked the first Lords of Shadow. Had a really good presentation. I like the whole look of it. It's kind of the kind of gothic look that it had going for it. It was good. I liked it a lot. Can't go wrong with the voice talents of Patrick Stewart involved, and I think it was fairly competent hack and slash game. I can see how some people might be turned off by it for the hardcore Castlevania fans that it cut sort of kind of rebooted into a third person hack and slash with some interestingly clever puzzles and platforming involved. But I wasn't heavily invested into the series, so I can kind of look beyond that and enjoy it for what it was. So it's a pretty good looking game for 360, even though it's slightly showing its age, but that game looks beautiful. on on the 360. Don't know about the PS3. I don't know if it's on PC, but it's worth checking out if you haven't already.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to Lords of Shadow. I like the Castlevania Symphony of the Night for the arcade, and I haven't been the biggest person who's been interested in it, but it definitely the Lords of Shadow was you know a very large epic game, and I hope Lords of Shadow 2 is great.
Yeah, there are definitely some improvements that they could be tweaked and worked upon, built upon what they did in the first one and make it that much more polished game. So
Really wish that Ubisoft would move Rayman Legends to maybe April. I think they had a similar problem with Rayman Origins, where they were just like coming out between like these big AAA games. Oh, it's also Rayman Origins, which is apparently it was a great game, but nobody wanted to pay $60 for it. As I think David Jaffe was saying, like Rayman Origins was his favorite game of that year, but he still didn't want to pay $60 for it.
yeah,
Yeah, so whatever the case may be, I'm looking forward to all these games. I hope they turn out well. The only one I'm not really looking forward to is Gears of War Judgment.
yeah. I haven't played any of the games, so I don't have an opinion on that. It seems like it's a bit of a necessary prequel, right?
It, it does, and I don't really see why we would go back.
Right. Maybe we could use another. What's the damn name of the game? Oh, I forget. Uh,
Sounds like maybe on February 10th.
no, not that. Was There was that other Epic Games first person shooter? Yeah, Epic Games.
Epic Legends.
I'm looking up the game. That's why I was in a bit of silence, but it doesn't matter. Shit. Let me see. I'm still looking. Hold on.
In German, let you all know that recently I've been looking up a lot of free YouTube videos about movies that either the studios don't mind them being up, or frankly they just haven't noticed yet. But for me, I like going online and looking up free videos where they can, and just taking advantage of the system. And maybe there's one movie that I really liked that I saw recently, which was called Once Upon a Time in the West, and I really did enjoy it. It was a very it's a Sergio Leone film. I'm a big fan of that, and I love the score. I love the actors and characters, and it really is just a darn good game. Darn good, darn good.
Bullet Store. A Bullet Store. Oh, oh,
That's my
Charles.
score.
That's right.
Silly goose.
Oh, Charles Bronson in that? The Once Upon a Time in the West. I think I saw that on Netflix.
Charles Bronson. Wait, hold on.
Am I thinking of a different movie?
Um, no, you are absolutely right. Oh my God, yes, yes, he was. I thought that was another one. I thought it was Stevie O. Frank. Where? Oh my gosh, nope, I'm wrong. That was Charles Bronson. Yep, he's the main character. It's like wow, I completely got the wrong image of him just because of the fact that he doesn't have his mustache.
Damn, dirty baboons.
It is a good film, and he also plays a harmonica throughout the film.
Must watch. So yes, Bullet Storm. I'd rather see a sequel to Bullet Storm.
Yeah, I would actually like to see a lot more Western games. I mean, like Western American European sensibilities, but like actual Westerns.
Spaghetti westerns.
or Red Dead or something out there.
Why
So,
not? Why not? So yes, that will conclude the podcast here. Thank you, Jack Burton, for the question.
thank you very much.
This is episode 125. Thank you all for listening, and we got the Twitters. You can follow us on the Twitters at Splitter47 and at ch_Gorog. And be sure to give us a thumbs up. I don't think there's a thumbs up, but a comment and 5 stars out of 5. That'd be nice on iTunes.
Yes, please. And write us a review. Subscribe to us. Go to our page on spill.com under the group section under Blythe Thumbs Podcast. And anything else?
I think that's about covers it. Because all that stuff will be linked in the show notes on this episode. So yeah, I did finish my Barkley Let's Play, just to let people know there. It was biblical, fantastic to replay that again for the viewing audience at home. So could that be on my YouTube channel?
Everybody.
I was play acting throughout that whole Let's Play. It was much fun. I'll try to incorporate the Barkley voice in more episodes to come.
Try to incorporate the same voice for the Hoops saga, or better yet, why don't we make it a radio play for the Hoops for the sequel?
Hey, if it worked back then, I think it could work now. Why not?
I cannot wait, and I got to say I'm looking forward to this new year full of promises and hope, and of ridiculous shenanigans that I will hope will occur in video games and in life in general.
If you can slam with the rest and jam with the... Wait, damn, I fucked up the line.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Oops. That's right. So yeah, thank you all for listening. Have a fantastic week. I'm Spooner47 signing off.
CH Gorog. I am not _Gorog. I'm CH Gorog. Forget what I just said before. And thank you very much for listening.